Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to SOFREP Radio. I am your host, Rad, and today I have an awesome guest. But before I introduce you to him, I want to remind you to keep picking up that merch. Go in to check out our book club. You go to SOFREP.com, hit that merch. It's all branded. SOFREP. See, SOFREP right here. You can have it. Tag us in it. SOFREP Mafia, SOFREP, anywhere you're at, and I will share it on our social media. Also, our book club, right? We got a lot of authors that you guys have listened to me interview over the years, and we have books from them in our book club that are curated by special operators, just for guys and gals that want to read that world, okay, that knowledge. So sofrep.com/book-club. Now, I talk a lot to a lot of awesome individuals. Everybody comes on the show as a rock star. There's some type of inner spotlight that just pours outward onto us. My next guest, Jared Shepard, is no different. He is the founder of Warriors Ethos, which is a transitioning veteran type website into, life after the military. What do you do? Where do you go? That kind of a thing. And he also has transitioned himself into a company called Hypori Halo, which you may already know about if you're active or in National Guard or in the Air Force. Space Force.
Door Gunner and Space Force.
Door Gunner and Space Force, baby. Yeah. All right. Welcome to the show, Jared.
Hey, appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you guys' time.
Yeah. And I want to shout out to Laura for arranging all of this. I know you've been busy. You were at Special Operation Forces Week, SOF Week. That's in Florida just recently, right?
Yeah, in Tampa. Yeah, it was a great show. It's both a great show from the business side of the house, and it's also for my nonprofit. Warriors Ethos is one of our biggest events of the year. We get the USS American Victory. It's an old World War II ship. We have the best funk band in Tampa come out. We have Mission Barbecues there supporting. It's a great time for a lot of operators to all get together and tell lies to each other about what they used to do and
right.
raise money for guys that are in transition out of the military.
I love it. Now, what was probably the most public, craziest thing that they displayed that you didn't think they would display at SOF Week?
Oh man, I've been going there for years, so I guess nothing catches me by surprise anymore. But of course, this was an international year, and the Global Soft guys, Stu Braden's team at Global Soft, they just did a great job of putting the show on this year. And with the international year, they have the combined arms demonstration that they do out there, where they bring a lot of the white side, black side soft guys, but they also bring international soft in, and they do like a mock takedown of a ship in the bay, and they're running little birds through doing strafing runs with blanks, and they bring the SWIC boat teams in, or the special operations boat, the Navy boat teams in, and just burn up, thousands of pounds worth of blank ammunition and dump it into the bay. So it's a lot of fun. You get to smell the cordite, you get to listen to the sound and the noise, and people who have never seen that before get to stand there in awe, slack-jawed, and stare at, operators jumping around and having fun.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Now, how would somebody look up Warrior Ethos, which you have founded, and tell us about, some of the Warrior Ethos, and then we'll get into the background of what made you create Warrior Ethos. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Warriors Ethos, the easiest way to find us is warriorsethos.org. It's WARRIORS ethos.org. It is a nonprofit that helps veterans in transition out of the military to find out what's next, right? To figure out what's next in their lives. I often say, look, your life isn't over when you're done serving, and nor should it be the peak of your life, right? It should be something that you build upon. And, you use your experience in the military, and then you figure out how you're going to use that experience in the military and then build something more, whether it's for you, whether it's for your family, whether it's for the nation. Right, leverage your experience in service and become successful doing what you go do next.
You have a great beard too, bro. I just want to let you know that. If you're watching this, that's a good beard, right? It takes a lot of beard to show up on a camera, so I'm going to give you some respect on that. All right,
I appreciate you, brother. I'm still in the minor leagues compared to you, but I appreciate it.
It would be longer. It would be longer. The trick to keeping it this way is I wear combat gear right around here, and it's all Velcro with my mags.
That'll do it. That'll all that Velcro will tear it off.
Yeah, so the beard's just going to hit a certain point about right here. My belly button's right here. My mags go right here. Or if I've got my rifle shouldered and I'm pulling away, it's always like tugging on it with the sling mount and stuff. So that's the only way I cut my hair.
Nothing like a battle belt as your groomer.
That's it. That's the only way. So I just want to say, warriorethos.org is where you can go check out. If you're struggling out there or you're getting out of the military, you want to look into transitioning, you should check out Warrior Ethos.
If you're 12 months out from getting out of the military, you need to start planning for you. right? And go to warriorsethos.org. We'll help walk you through that. We'll help you plan for your family. We'll help you with resume planning. We'll help you with interview prep. We'll help you with setting goals and objectives. But we don't fish for you. We help you fish. So it's a great place. It started around a bunch of soft guys helping a bunch of wounded soft guys get out, but it's become much bigger. And just the idea is like, look, if you're willing to put your hand up and take an oath and support your country, then you should also be able to go do something cool afterwards too. So that's what we're focused on.
Kind of like recreational therapy as a prescription from the VA, if they would just give it, like, without having to ask, oh, do you want some recreational therapy? Here, have some recreational therapy. Cool. Yeah, exactly. Go do something cool, something that will make you happy and not just sit on the couch and feel like you're sitting on the couch.
It's amazing. And when you think about transition, right, and how hard transition is for guys who have served, especially guys that have served for a long time, but a lot of nonprofits out there, and I think actually to the detriment of the military, talk a lot about all the bad things that happen to veterans, PTSD and yada, yada, yada. And I think we're focused on the wrong things. All those bad things are ultimately a failure in transition, right? A failure in us spending time and helping people figure out how to go know what's next. We spend years teaching operators and other folks like that how to do what they do for a living, and then we give them like a week to figure out how to be a civilian. Right. We need to invest more in that and helping folks figure out how to go be what's next and what their value is and how they accomplish that. But we also shouldn't underestimate that veterans, while we're only less than 2% of the population, we represent a by order of magnitude larger percentage of business ownership, small business ownership, employment. I mean, we veterans, we have an impact, and not just small, but by order of magnitude of our representation, we have an impact on the nation, and it's in the nation's best interest to continue to invest in us.
Heck yeah, since it's our number one exported item, the GDP would be nothing without our military's 2% deploying.
Well, I mean, just those 2%, if you look at what they do afterwards,
100%.
I think it's something like, I forgot what the numbers are exactly, but it's somewhere close to 8% of small business is owned by veterans.
That's right.
Which is, I mean, like I said, order of magnitude larger than the representation of the population.
Right. And when you have 2%, let's say, that are in the military serving actively and they're being deployed, they all have to eat, they all have to drink, they have to use toilet paper if they're, fortunate enough, I guess, not in the bush or whatever, but everything has to be purchased. All that creates the global GDP, our gross domestic product here in the U.S. It's our export. The number one thing is our military. That's why that's who we are.
I mean, you'd be amazed at what veterans can go and do, though. I got buddies, SF guys, I'm not going to name names, but, like the Smoothie King of North Carolina or the Carolinas.
Smoothie King
is a long tabber, right? He owns multiple Smoothie Kings out there. A buddy of mine's a former group commander, and now he runs a cruise line travel service company, right?
Of course.
So it's guys and gals can go and do all kinds of great stuff.
My dad retired as a Green Beret and helped open a skate shop for me when I was 13, right? Because he believed in that. Whatever he believed in me, he saw me skating with all my friends. He's like, okay, here you go. He transitioned out. He was a business guy. He went to school and got his master's degree and always was so proud of his graduation gown that he had and the cords and the drapery that goes on that, and I was like, that's just dad, getting all more badges and tie jump wings over here and infantry cords over here and, all your stuff. So I know that you said to me previously that you had gone through sniper courses. How old were you when you went through that?
Oh man.
Yeah. How old?
Well, I went through sniper school. I think I was 22, 23. I was a young infantryman. So I'm the anti-CEO for a million reasons. I was a high school dropout. I was a knucklehead as a kid. Had a broken home. My father had a lot of PTS from Vietnam and had a broken home. So I ended up, I would joke, I was always good at everything I ever put my mind to. And when I was young, I put my mind to being a jerk.
Sure.
And I was good at it and eventually forced my mom and my stepfather to essentially kick me out. And that was my fault, not theirs. And then I continued to dig a hole until I found myself, in the backseat of an abandoned car and trying to figure out whether I was going to get warm or eat. And in the end, the Army ended up being my way out. And I only wanted to go in the infantry, although I scored pretty well on the ASVAB. My recruiter actually, out of his own pocket, paid for my GED. So I could get a GED and join the Army.
How nice!
I only wanted to go in the infantry, and which I did, and I earned my blue cord there, which I absolutely loved, and it
Yes.
became the foundation for who I was as a person, right? The ethos, I didn't name this by accident. Warriors Ethos, the ethos of a warrior, the ethos of the infantry, the ethos of a non-commissioned officer, the ethos of a leader in the military, became my foundation, right? Because I was so wayward, I ended up adopting the values, the moral compass, the principles of the military and the leadership that is in the military, and it set the groundwork for me to do everything I've done since. Two different companies, nonprofit, all kinds of things that I've been able to start and grow and build. It all started there.
And sniper school. Crazy. I got a friend going through it right now. He's a 82nd.
Which one?
He's 82nd Airborne. I'm not sure exactly.
Probably down at Benning at the Bravo.
Yeah.
4 course down there. But yeah, I mean,
what would you tell him? What would you tell him? He listens. What would you tell my man who's about to go step into that world? He's selected.
So the Bravo 4 course was different than SODIC, but it's changed. Spending 20 years in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan changed the role of a sniper so much. Back when I was pre-war, when I went through it, company commanders, time commanders didn't even know how to employ a sniper effectively. Unless you were part of a scout sniper platoon, they really didn't know how to use them effectively. Now, we use them tremendously effectively in Iraq and Afghanistan. It changed. The weapon systems have changed. The mechanisms have changed. The role, I think, has changed. In my day, it was, stocking was king. In the Bravo 4 course, the stocking was king. You had to make your stocks. You had to shoot an M24, which is a Remington 700 based 7.62 NATO or 308 platform. And one of the qualifying things you had to do is hit a 1,000-yard target with iron sights. That shit doesn't exist anymore. Why would they have to do that? The weapon systems have become so much more advanced, the optics, the capabilities. So I would just tell them, hey, it can only suck for so long. Pay attention to the math. And I would say fundamentally, and it's one of the things that everybody doesn't realize when they're getting in, shooting's not the hard part. The math is, the dope is, the spotting is. There's a reason why the senior guy is the spotter, not the shooter. So it's, knuckle in and do it. It's a fun experience.
Knuckle in and do it. I'm going to make a shirt. Knuckle in and do it. That is exactly right, and that's just showing up and just learning and listening to what they have to say. So when you get there, my homie, just 1 foot forward is what I'm understanding from, and
it's going to suck. Just plan on it.
I think a lot of folks get, romanticized by the Hollywood sniper of the long shot, right? The rifle, the long shot, the scope, but wouldn't you think sniping, which is like a bird, the snipe, and he has a beak, he doesn't even have a gun, and he just like snipes shrimp around his feet or whatever is swimming. Wouldn't you think that sniping could be utilizing whatever is available in a stalking pattern to take out that threat?
Well,
can you use a JDAM to do that?
There's all kinds of interesting stuff that when it comes to the application of that, right? In different ways that tradecraft can be applied. To include, like to your point, just even getting close to an objective and collecting intelligence, can be as important as shooting somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that you're absolutely right. It is counter romantic what the actual role of a sniper is, and I'll tell you, you think it's all super sexy and romantic until you're in a ghillie suit in a field in 100-degree weather with bugs crawling over you and you can't move because you're under direct observation for hours on end, and you pretty much have to like slowly roll over to take a leak. Yeah, the romance of that goes away really quickly.
Speaking of taking a leak, I always reference my father just to keep him around, but he talked about just laying there and peeing, just like you just go.
Which, by the way, like that has other implications too. Like if you think that they're going to try to hunt you down with dogs and you just took a leak on yourself, you just made it way worse.
Yeah, it's
right?
going to stink, dude.
It's all kinds of problems. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, because you gotta go. You're only human, and holy cow. And if you are in position, and all of a sudden if it hits, man, and you're just like, I remember going through boot camp, and it was like, you cannot swat a fly on your nose without asking for permission to adjust. Okay. So it's like,
I remember, there's also things you don't anticipate. Like when I was in Korea up in the DMZ, I remember me and a guy who I was with, we got put out with a package on the DMZ, and we actually froze to the ground. Our ghillie suits froze to the ground, and we couldn't get up. So we had to like cut ourselves out of our freaking own ghillie suits to get up. And like, so it's like, it's stuff that you just don't think about sometimes.
Yeah, I would never think you're laying in wait so long that you freeze over and crust over with the ground.
Yep.
True. We do war games out here in the desert of Utah all the time. And I've laid in an ambush position, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, just this like tarantula comes crawling right in front of me. And I was like, literally, there's a tarantula in Utah, first of all. Second, there's tarantulas in Utah's deserts. Watch out for that. Okay. And third, I got on the radio and said, guys, I just want to let you know that I got a tarantula that's crawling in front of me. They're like, all of a sudden you hear, cease fire. The whole everybody's like walks over, and we get to stare at this like tarantula that had just like literally come out of nowhere. So how
cool.
I can only imagine though, under real life threatening situation where like there's a snake right in your face, or you just,
I mean, when I was in basic, actually, ironically, I blew an ambush over a spider. But
I'm only human.
Gunner, back when we had 60 still, I was a 60 gunner when I was in basic, and we were on patrol, movement to contact, for an ambush. And I remember it was like right at twilight, and I could see the movement out in the distance. And so we're all kind of like, this, and I'm trying to focus and see what the movement is out in the distance. And I realized it wasn't out in the distance. It was a freaking tarantula the size of a golf ball, or a spider the size of a golf ball. And it was like right here, and it moved. And then my eyes focused, and I saw what it was. And it was literally like finger on finger, and like, everybody was like, what the fuck? Contact. Everybody gets online, it's like, no, it was a spider. They're like, my bad, I fucked this up.
Spider. No. Where's my wife? Get the spider. We have an agreement here. She gets the spiders. I get everything else. I'm cool like that. Well, holy cow. That's awesome. I love that. Now, joking aside, the military takes a toll on you. You give yourself to them whole, 100%. They go through a very visual inspection on our bodies at MEPS, and all that to get in. You're like, okay, your hole's good, everything's good, you're good. You get in, you go through a lot, you put yourself through all this rigor, and then you have to transition kind of out of that rigorous regiment, like you're constantly doing PT. Are you still staying the course, or was that hard for you to do after you got out of the military? Was stay the course like that?
For me personally, so I did. I'm kind of weird for a lot of reasons. I only did 7 years in the Army. So I originally joined. I became an infantryman. I got my EIB as a young PFC. I got to go to sniper school as a PFC. I went to Korea. Made corporal and sergeant. I made sergeant in like 18 months. Into the Army.
That's good.
So super fast. I went through PLDC en route back to Fort Hood, Texas, which I did not like at the time. I did not like the mechanized world in the Clinton era. And ultimately I was going to go to SFAS and go be a Green Beret. And a buddy of mine was like, no, man, you should go into IT. And I was like, well, like, what would I do in IT? Like, I don't know. He's like, oh, dude, you could get like one certification to make like $70,000 a year. And I'm like,
that's cool.
Shit, that's a lot of money. All right, I'm in, right? All right. So I re-enlisted to get away from Fort Hood and to go learn IT. God had a sense of humor, sent me back to Fort Hood as an IT guy. I ended up being in the 3rd Corps G6, and eventually I end up encountering the brand new Corps commander, 3-star guy named B.B. Bell, who sees me working on his laptop, and he essentially threatens my life. He's like, hey, Sergeant, why are you touching my laptop? I'll fucking kill you, right? And I'm like, sir, I'm your IT guy. And he sees, of course, infantry stuff on my chest, and he goes, no, you're an infantry guy. I'm like, yes, sir, I'm an infantry guy, but I'm also an IT guy. And I guess to him, that meant I was his IT guy. So I found myself actually on September 11th of 2001 being assigned to be his IT guy. Because he was in the Pentagon when it was hit by the airplane. He got brought back to Fort Hood, and then I became his IT guy. And that ended up being my last job in the Army was working for him. And the beauty of working for him as a young E5 was, I got to be the strap hanger in a room where there was these very, very senior people that were mentoring him. Secretary of State, Secretary, Undersecretary of Defense, you name it. And I realized, man, the world is way bigger than I ever thought it was. And so I made the decision, I think I'm going to get out and try to do something impactful. do something impactful at scale. And of course, my leadership at the time really wanted me to stay in and become an officer. And I considered it, but I didn't want to wait another 20 years to be at a rank that was actually influential. And I felt like maybe I could actually accomplish that as a civilian instead and find a way to give back. Now, of course, if you would have told me back then that I would then log 46 months of deployment as a civilian into Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Qatar, Yemen, etc., I would have never guessed. But it was one of the best things I did, was not because I wanted to get out of the military, but because I wanted to have a better impact on the mission, and I felt I could do that as a civilian.
And now, today, that's a great segue. You're great. That's great. Well spoken. So it's on your shirt. It says Hypori, right? Hypori Halo. This is
well, actually, ironically, yeah. So I'm like a damn NASCAR shirt, right?
Yeah, and that's cool. I got one on too. It's cool.
I always joke. So this is how it started. So back in 2006, I started my first company, which is Intelligent Waves, and it's a IT services company. And I was literally asked ultimately by General Odierno to step in and help JIDO stand up what was the Counter IED Operational Intelligence Center. We were really going after what's called attack the network. We were trying to, how do we use technology to disrupt bad guys that were building bombs and trying to kill our guys, right? And I had already deployed once with Third Corps, helping build out the infrastructure in Iraq. So I had a really good, intimate understanding of what Iraq was. I already spent 15 months there at the time. I knew that all the network infrastructure was there. So I ended up, kind of deciding rather than do it for somebody else, I was going to do it for my own company. And I went and talked to my boss at the time, was a guy named General Joe Anderson, Fighting Joe. And I said, hey, sir, I think I'm going to start my own company. And he was like, bullshit, you're coming back to Iraq with us. And I was like, well, sir, no, I mean, I'll come back to Iraq, but I'll be wearing my own T-shirt. And he was like, well, I don't give a shit whose T-shirts you're wearing. Like, if it's yours, all the better. Like, I can kick your butt. And so like, let's go talk to the boss. And so we go talk to General Odierno, who was a 3-star at the time. And Odierno was this legendary guy and great influencer and mentor. And he had a lot of impact on my life. But he was a West Point lineman. We lost him to cancer last year, unfortunately. But he was a West Point lineman, big, bald guy, like, massive guy. And he comes out, but he's soft-spoken and was really clearly articulated. And I tell him what I was thinking about doing, and he puts this maw of a hand on my shoulder and says, Jared, this is the American dream. To have come where you've come from, because he knew my background, served your country, and now have a chance to start your own company. He's like, I'll support it. I think you should do it. And that became the birth of Intelligent Waves, and me ultimately becoming the first acting six for JIDO COIC, building the first COIC downrange in Iraq, and then building out my company as I built every attack the network platform there was in Iraq and Afghanistan over the next 8-10 years almost.
A domino effect, probably just started going. You were like, oh, this, and being taught IT and having that understanding, it really did come in handy from the military. I mean, when
I joined the Army, originally I thought I was going to be, a killer.
Ground pounder, right? Killer, yeah, infantry, sniper, bro. If you would have told me I was going to spend all my time in war being an IT guy, I would have never thought. Href, dude. Like, you're like, wait a second here. HTML matters. It's like, you want me to like make this hyperlink into a word? Let me do.
Well, the cool thing was one of my bragging points was at one point, I think we were under control. I had more bandwidth that belonged to me in country than any division in Iraq did. Because we were doing more really cool stuff, whether it was with Task Force and with the SOF communities or with the Counter IED communities, with Task Force Troy, Task Force Paladin, 16, 17. I made some great friends.
Wow.
General Clark back then was Colonel Clark. He was he was a regimental commander, then became the 17 commander. I helped use JIDO's money to build Task Force 17, right? And then Scotty Miller, General Miller, his wife, when I started Warriors Ethos 12 years ago, when he was a colonel, his wife actually helped me because she was part of SOCOM's Care Coalition, write up what became our initial transition plan, which was the genesis of the nonprofit, right? And it's just being around legends like that and being able to be exposed to legends like that. And it just has it's kind of been my lifetime of once in a lifetime opportunities.
Same. Okay. I'm going to ride that wave with you. I get to interview you and you got to meet all of them and all these people that I get to interact with. It's the same thing. These people come into my life. I tell myself after probably 95% of my interviews, I'm a better person because of that interview. I've learned something new, or I opened up my mind, or I wasn't so, constricted on my views, or I just wanted to hear the other person out. Like this conversation, like you and I had never met before, and we're just having a conversation about you're willing to be open with me. Hey, I just want people to still have this kind of, you can do this in today's world. You can talk to someone like, yes.
You're giving back is such a
yes.
huge thing that I think is I think people overlook. And when I was that high school dropout homeless kid, right, that I told you about, the guy that kind of saved me was a guy, I didn't know who the guy was. Ultimately, a cop brought me to him and said, look, either take care of this kid or he's going to go to jail, kind of a thing. And he went out of his way to kind of help me and get me on the path. Ironically, he used like reverse psychology to get me to join the Army. He was kind of like, no, you should be a groundskeeper in the Air Force. I was like, screw that. I'm going to be a freaking infantry guy, right? You know what I mean? But when I realized that he had really put me on the right path and he had kind of saved my life, I came back to him. I said, hey, John, I owe you. And he was like, you're right, you do. And I was like, okay. And he was like, and it's expensive. I was like, oh yeah, all right. Like, what do I owe you? He's like, you're going to have to do it for other people, but not when it's convenient. You have to do it when it's painful. You have to do it when it's inconvenient, when you don't have time and you don't have the money, because that's when it matters. Because if you just do it when it's convenient, it's kind of bullshit. He's like, you got to do it when it's hard, and that's when it matters. And my whole life of all these amazing influencing people, mentors, and people who went out of their way to take me under wing for no real reason that I deserved, is because people did it when they didn't need to. And so a big part of my life is doing it when I should, right? Which is all the time. And that was the genesis of Warriors Ethos. It's the reason why I mentor a lot of other people in small business. It's the reason why I give back. I've already amassed more money than I ever dreamed of making. Yeah. Most of it I'm going to give away after this. Right. Because there's just better ways to have impact.
Pay it forward. It's just what it is. We don't get to take it with us anywhere. So, but what you can do is relationships. I saw this thing with Denzel.
I think Denzel Washington was talking to some college kids, playing NCAA champions. And he told him, he said, hey, he's like, what you never see following a hearse? And they were all like, what? A moving truck. You can't take this shit with you.
No.
So find a way to do something impactful with it.
Exactly. Just pay it forward. If you have knowledge, share your knowledge. Like, write a book, put it out there, or just share it. Like what you're doing right now, talking about where you came from. Someone out there is going to be listening to this and they're like, okay, yeah, hey, maybe I came from that same cloth,
Bro, I'm like, if I can do it, anybody can,
Same.
And I think one of the pieces of advice I give everybody who's like aspiring to go do something new or be something more or find a way to be more impactful is like, you have to seek mentorship, not wait for it. Right. And for me, like I have a gregarious personality. I can be borderline obnoxious sometimes and how strong my personality is. But sometimes the best thing I can ever do is just shut up and listen. And what I try to remember, I think I told you earlier, there was a point where I remember waking up in the backseat of this abandoned car, the low 30s outside. And I remember trying to figure out, was I going to go get warm or go find food? And I hold on to that feeling because I want to believe that I'm never better than I was that day. And if I can believe that, then it means I'm never better than anybody. Right. And then if we could all just get out of our own ways and embrace that kind of idea and be willing to listen to anyone. Mm-hmm. Because people tell me, they're like, oh, Jared, you're so successful because you work so hard. I'm like, no, I'm successful because I'm lucky. People go, no, you work really hard. I'm like, a freaking janitor works hard. That doesn't make them successful, right? The fact that I've had people who have gone out of their way to help me has made me successful. The fact that I was willing to listen to the mentorship. By the way, that same janitor who works his ass off for 40 years of his life, he's got something to teach you.
Oh, yeah.
But can you listen to it?
What's funny about that janitor? He's probably a Green Beret. And you just don't get it. Like a lot, not you.
I know, man. I know a lot of really good, successful Green Berets, but they're all forms and all facets.
They're all chief bottle washers, like they're all janitors, accountants, like all in one.
I mean, the good thing about a lot of long tabbers and knuckle draggers is there's nothing beneath them. So
no, well, I'll tell you, my dad was my baseball coach, and so like if some other coach was yelling at my dad, they're like, who you yelling at, bro? Who I thought was Rambo. You yelling at my dad about that strike, bro? Do you even know who my dad was? That's how I viewed it, right? Sure. So these people live among us. They're our neighbors. you just don't know who's doing what in the guard. It could be the local high school dude.
Well, and often nobody doubts them more than they do, right? Nobody doubts them more than themselves, right? I mean, that self-doubt's real, and it can be an impediment if you don't learn how to control it.
Did you get the opportunity to go airborne as well through your career?
I did not, actually.
Okay, yeah. So
I was a leg.
Yeah, same. But my dad says I'm his leg, so that's a different story.
Which was really weird because I was actually assigned to a LURS unit for a while. So being a leg LURS guy was really interesting. As my section sergeant called me, truck LURS.
Truck LURS. That's wild. That's wild. Now,
which I mean, realistically, it was more helicopter than anything. But he loved to call me truck LURS. So yeah, it was what it was.
Were you always in a helicopter? Were you always flying around?
I mean, when you were in the LURS unit, for the most part, most of our insertions back when I was doing it were by helicopter. Yeah.
Any crazy helicopter touchdowns?
The one where I broke both my ankles.
What?
We were doing what's called touch and goes, where the way it's supposed to look is from a distance. It looks like the helicopter never stops, right? So what it does is it comes in and it sets its tail down, and then as it levels out at ground level, crew chief gives you a thumbs up, you kick your rucks out and go, and then the helicopter keeps flying off, right? And helicopter, it was nighttime, so you take all your gear off your face, because you don't want to, hit the ground with something on your face and everything else. And crew chief gives us thumbs up, we kick rucks and jump out the door. And unfortunately, we were about 15 feet off the ground. And I landed right on a rock. So that wasn't fun.
No. What would the usual height be? Like right at ground level?
Usually the wheels are pretty much on the ground. So
yeah,
you pretty much you kick out and you're on the ground or a couple of feet above it.
Yeah, it's angled. You're jumping out basically like John Wick, and it keeps going. But your ankles.
Oh, some of those pilots, man, especially the 160th guys, they're stupid good. Like
SOAR guys, Night Stalkers.
I've seen those guys, set the back wheel of a Blackhawk on a building and hold it while guys are roping out, man. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
I actually have the creator of that, Colonel Nightingale. I just had him on like the other day, and he contributes and writes he just did the Ranger Creed on SOFREP.com. So he is when I was interviewing him, he's like, yeah, and then I founded this group called the 160th. And I was like, wait a second here. The 160th SOAR? Night Stalkers?
Yeah,
he's like, Rad. Well, Panama.
I had a couple of my, when I talk about that list of just amazing mentors, a couple of them were Night Stalkers. Tom Matthews, who was the squadron commander at the time in Black Hawk Down, which of course Scotty Miller was the Delta guy on the ground at the time, and others. And then Tom's been a great mentor to me over the years. He's hopefully getting ready to retire finally. Retire from civilian service. He's been an SES for a long time.
Never ever.
And then I'm spacing now. That's
Miller.
Another guy who was a Little Bird pilot was just an absolutely outstanding mentor to me too. He was actually one of the original Little Bird test pilots.
Oh, yeah, those
Jimmy
are quick.
Miles. I don't know why I spaced it. Jimmy Miles later became General Miles, 3-star, but yeah, Jimmy Miles was one of the original Little Bird test pilots. He was great, just absolutely legendary aviator, great dude.
Oh yeah, no, they're crazy in those helicopters.
Which is ironic because the Little Bird's so small. Like if you ever been on one or around one, they're like so small. And General Miles, Jimmy Miles is like he's like 6'4", or something like that. So it's like I'm sure when he was in that thing, he's like,
"That's me. I'm 6'4". That's me right there. 270, bro. 6'5". That's what's up, General. How you doing, sir? Let's go for a ride together. He'd be like, Rat, it's just a one-man show in here. I know there's 4 seats, but the weight limit, I've got it. Yeah, those guys go upside down and just like sideways. They look like an RC.
Not with people on them, but yeah.
No, but I mean, yeah, exactly. That's so cool. Now, you have this platform. If you go to Hypor, am I saying it right? Hypori?
Hypori. So Hypori
Halo
became the genesis of the work I was doing with SOF and the work we were doing with the intelligent wave side of the house. A guy named General Mulholland came to me and said, "Hey, Jared, all this stuff is really cool, but what we really need is the ability to have a team go into a place they're not supposed to be with nothing, and be able to securely, be able to buy or use some form of communications in which they can't be tracked or targeted." And so we created a solution that would allow operators to go into what's called a contested environment or a denied space environment like that. And they could buy a cell phone off of a host nation market, knowing that the cell phone was compromised and the network was compromised, and be able to then still securely command and control without the risk of losing data. And there's some unique ways that we had to implement that with some other technologies in to do that kind of mission set, but we did so successfully. But along the way, I was like, man, this actually addresses such a bigger problem. Like, this is today what we call BYOD, but this is the ability to access an enterprise data, an enterprise with information that you want to protect, whether it's DoD's NIPRNet or a company's internet or a company's network where they have proprietary information, HIPAA controlled information, the SEC controlled information, whatever happens to be, right? Where they can go and access this secure data from a device that the company doesn't want to control and assumes is already compromised.
Right.
And do so in a way in which the user can't compromise the data that they're accessing. And inversely, protect the user's privacy from the company's overreach, right? Ultimately, being able to ensure that you can use your personal phone to access highly sensitive information in a way in which you can't compromise the information, and in a way in which they don't get to see what's on your phone either. Like, they don't get to see what websites you go to, what apps you have on your phone, any of that other stuff to you. So maintaining both an enterprise's security and the user's privacy, or like, what we call now is protect everything that's important, not just the enterprise.
Right. It's almost like an integrated VPN network where it's like
more complex than that. It's
way more complex.
It's like what's called a virtual desktop solution, but for a mobile device on steroids, written around NSA standards. Right.
That's what I'm saying. But for those of us that didn't realize that, that's kind of what it would be almost like, And
so today I can use my personal cell phone. I can get on DoD NIPRNet.
Right.
And we're the only DoD-wide enterprise authorized BYOD platform, which in English that means, if you have an Army.mil address and you're in the Army, you can get to NIPRNet using your personal cell phone, do fully PKI enabled everything, Teams, HR stuff, everything else like that, and without the Army being able to see anything on your personal cell phone, and without you being able to screw up and lose any data of the Army's.
On your personal cell phone. And then therefore everybody's happy because the Army and the military doesn't want you on your personal cell phone seeing personal stuff like that.
Well, the Army doesn't want to know what Sergeant Snuffy's doing on his oon time, right? I mean, they don't want to inherit that liability.
No.
And nor does Sergeant Snuffy want the Army to know that.
Sergeant Snuffy. Yeah. It's so true.
At the same time, the world has changed. Post-COVID, the world has changed, right? We need to enable service members to collaborate, not just while they're at the motor pool, but, imagine you give Sergeant First Class Snuffy the ability to knock out the NCOERs he's got to do, the awards he's got to do, the paperwork he's got to do, but he could actually do it on a Sunday at home with his kids crawling on the floor watching a football game.
That's right.
Rather than having to go in and spend more time away from his family, right? The idea of BYOD, the idea of what this was supposed to be for the department is, let's empower service members to have more convenience, more flexibility, more time at home, but yet still be able to knock out the work that's necessary.
And I'm going to say 98% of people have a cell phone, right? And so you're like already
significantly more than people have laptops now. I mean, like hell, I think last year they said something like 68% of all internet traffic in the world was generated by mobile devices.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we're mobile. It is what it is. It is. Yep. It is. And so
embrace it or get ran over.
And plus having all of your personnel having these devices personally purchased, chances are that they bought their own already, their phone, their style. They can just access it. You don't have to issue them a new.
Well, and the other thing is, like, the government can't sustain buying cell phones.
That's what I'm saying.
That's just not sustainable.
That's what I'm saying.
From a cost standpoint. And then the other side is too, like, our security. The reason why we built all that security into it was, originally it was for classified purposes, right? For classified mobility. But what it's really manifested into is, like, look, if you guys are seeing this and you're watching it on TikTok, I'm sorry, man, you're an idiot. The TikTok is a nation state acting platform. It is people go, well, it's the same as Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, except for it's not owned by the Chinese government, right? So TikTok is owned by the Chinese government. It is used to actively exploit and change the outcome of people's behavior inside the United States by the Chinese government. And if you don't realize that that's a threat platform, then you're not paying attention. And we have to do things to defend against the influence of nation state acting platforms like that, because at the speed the Chinese are at right now, they're going to overtake us in technology if we're not careful. And especially if we're not protecting our IP and our data, because they have built, look at their version of the Joint Strike Fighter. How did they get to that fast? Well, they fucking stole our plans.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's how they build a lot of what they have. And we have to stop being complacent as a nation, as a government, as a military. We got to stop being complacent to that and know that they are actively collecting against us. And we have to buy and build our technologies in the Department of Defense to fight, just like we do with tanks and planes.
Well, there's that guy right now who just admitted to colluding with the Chinese in the Navy. Just like recently in our media is like just admitted guilt. And he's
real, man.
Actively in the Navy.
And it cracks me up when I hear people going, oh, the government's spying on me and privacy, and yada, yada, yada. And they're bitching about it on TikTok.
Yeah, bro. Oh,
and I'm like, you're an idiot.
Or anywhere on any social media platform, any of it. Because you get human and like all this intelligence is gathered. It's open intel that you're just putting out for anyone to gather.
Well, I mean, I'm okay. I'm on social media all the time. But you have to know what it is, right? You have to understand that it is like I said, like the principle of the way that we built the platform in the first place was to assume that the edge device is already compromised.
Right.
Because it probably is.
100%.
Whether it's compromised because it was a malicious actor like the Chinese, or it's compromised because you downloaded an app and you clicked I agree to sharing your information.
Accept all cookies.
One way or the other,
yeah.
It's some form of compromise.
You don't have to accept all the cookies.
Well, I mean, but even if you're using any of the mobile phone producers' platforms, those mobile phone producers,
100%.
whether it's iPhone, Apple, Google, you name it, they make money off of having access to your data.
Oh, 100%. And it's all right there in the user agreement that we just say yes.
Yep.
I was always taught that if you're going to sign a contract that had a lawyer involved, you should have a lawyer involved in your contract.
Yeah, man. But lawyers exist because lawyers exist. So,
well, they like to say, yeah, I know. I get that, right? Holy cow, there's a whole other conversation there.
That's one of those career fields I'm hoping that, nothing personal to my friends that are lawyers, but that's one of those career fields that I'm hoping AI puts out of business.
Oh.
Them and accountants.
Well, have you heard about people spiking the AI?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, there's called data contamination or data poisoning.
The teacher put Frankenstein in what they knew the kids would go and search. And so they put the word Frankenstein or whatever, and they landmined the kids' report. And the kids went in and did AI. And it came back saying that during the time of Shakespeare, Frankenstein or something along those lines. And the teacher immediately knew that they didn't write the report.
So AI is, we're going on a tangent, of course, but
that's okay.
AI is our generation's version of splitting the atom. Our grandfathers, for them, it was splitting the atom and how that could be used, atomic power or atomic weapons.
Right.
AI for us is the exact same thing. AI is going to change the world, whether we like it or not. How we allow it to change the world is up to us.
John Connor, where are you, bro? Oh, geez, dude. Because I know we're probably same age almost, dude. I tell you, I'm 46, so I'll tell you.
Oh, yeah, I'm a couple of years older than you. So
okay, yeah. You look good though. I'm gonna say that one more time to you on this show, brother.
Appreciate you.
But yeah, see, right now, let's talk about that. I'm looking at a new laptop so that I can host my show and have RAM and terabytes, and I'm being told, oh, you need to buy the one that has the new AI integrated inside of it, not on the cloud. And that's the one you need to buy through Microsoft, I think, has it. This new AI.
Copilot. Microsoft Copilot.
Copilot. Yeah. I'm nervous. I'm scared. I'm like, do I just want a typewriter? The hell?
Look, your personal use of AI is not going to change the world. How we allow government, how we allow corporations, how we allow the education institution to embrace it, and really like how we regulate AI is going to be the things that we have to really seriously consider. Like, I don't know if you know, like Snapchat has AI built into it. And so that means we got these kids under the age of 18 that can interact with an AI algorithm.
Correct.
And the problem is there's no safeties put on it. Right. And so, there's a couple studies out there where they tested this and they were like, hey, what if a kid starts talking about things like suicide? Does AI flag that? And no, if anything, it gives them ideas. And it's like, because it doesn't know, it's AI. It doesn't have context. It doesn't have, right now, we don't have safeties or parameters built around it in the way in which it's allowed to interact and who it should be allowing to interact with. I mean, if you don't want your kids surfing YouTube unchecked, you probably don't want them interacting with AI unchecked either.
And today's phones, it's all coming with it, like, sandwiched into it.
Just like atomic energy, man. Like I go back to my analogy on it's our nation's version of splitting the atom. If you remember when we were first testing it, the guys were out there with sunglasses watching it from 30 miles out, watching the atomic detonation going, whoa, that's cool, because they didn't know any better.
They didn't know.
Right. And we're the same way with AI right now. There's just certain things and implications and aspects of this that we just don't know yet. We can speculate, and some guys will say, hey, the world is going to end. I mean, it's the Oppenheimer paradigm, right? So the Oppenheimer paradigm was ultimately Oppenheimer got put with this decision that he had to make. That was, hey, we believe there's actually a reasonable percentage of a chance that if you detonate this atomic weapon in the atmosphere, it will light the atmosphere on fire and destroy the entire Earth. Inversely, if you don't do it, the Russians will discover the use of atomic weapons and can potentially destroy us off. We wipe us off the face of the planet. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
And so, I mean, he pushed the button, right?
Right. Which we have.
And I would argue that, he didn't have a choice. AI is the same problem. Like, okay, we want to put safeties and parameters on AI today to protect our children, to protect our nation, to protect the world, hopefully, right?
Right.
Are the Chinese going to do the same? Are the Russians going to do the same?
Well, here's the thing. They passed a bill where you can't look at adult content unless you can get verified as an 18 or older, all around the internet. That's just a thing. Why aren't they doing that, you think, with, it's 13 to be on, some of these social media things. You have to be 13. It's like, are you 13 or older? Check this box. It's like,
this could be a whole hole that we could go down too, but I'm almost of the mind of, look, Google and Microsoft and these big massive powers, right? These $1 trillion plus companies. I almost don't wonder if we don't need to create a different version of the internet for children.
Well, it was created for the military in the first place.
Like buying a firearm, maybe we should treat access to the internet the same way.
Right.
Hey, let's take it seriously. It is a constitutional right, like just the right to freedom of speech, the right to bear arms, the right to privacy. These are all constitutional rights. How does the access to the internet affect those rights? Because it does. It affects every one of them every day, and we haven't really ever figured out how to do that. And if anything, what we've done is we passed laws that say if you're a provider of information, even bad information, we can't hold you accountable for it.
Mm-hmm. Or if you're a parent who posted up their daughter's first menstrual cycle, and the daughter's now 25, but that's on the internet, and maybe the parents monetize.
Never comes out. Yeah, I mean, and now that that child's an adult, they can't get it off the internet.
No, and so this is a real thing going on.
The internet.
Yeah, this is actually happening right now in society, where she's like, I want compensation. And because somehow the parents got front row tickets to some show from their social media account using their kids. It's like Gary Coleman in Different Strokes. His parents spent all of his money. And when he turned 18, he was broke. He's like, where's my money? What you talk about, Willis? It's like, where's my money? And
it's hard. You can't, but also inversely, you can't regulate ethics. You can't regulate morals. You can't tell people they have to be good people. You can't make it a law. If so, we wouldn't have any presidents, by the way.
Really.
It's just, I don't know what the right answer is, but I can tell you that we're not at it right now.
And you're right. It's like, discovering the splitting the atom, and, let's go back to that parent and the kid, right? They just did it. They were just doing it. They were just, here you go, not realizing that there's going to be ramifications.
Well, and probably with no nefarious intent whatsoever.
Right.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing is never attribute to nefarious behavior what could simply be attributed to incompetence or complacency.
Correct.
Right. People who just don't know any better.
That's what I'm saying. And so, but today it's like, I created this thing that flies into space with the nucleus and it blows up. I didn't know any better. It's like you split it, and now I'm making a submarine live off of it underwater.
What do we want to do, though? We want to go back and find Einstein
Yeah.
Like, you want to go back and find Oppenheimer, and his descendants for. I mean, we have to
move forward.
That discovery. We got to believe that the center of the human existence and the center of actually one of the few things that really makes us different from the animals is our ability to be creative, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want to take that away, but we have to impart some kind of responsibility.
Well, Tesla said it best. Nikola Tesla. I'm going to loosely quote him here. He said, someone said, what do you think about them stealing your ideas? And he's like, well, it's not so much that they're stealing my ideas. It's that they don't have any of their own that scares me. He's like,
Sure.
It's like, can you contribute to the pool versus just drain the pool? It goes both ways. So, well, I just want to say we could probably get going on a lot of different conversations. You and I enjoy talking with you, and I've had you for just about an hour of solid going back and forth. And, we talked about
all kinds of subjects.
Oh yeah. warriorethos.org. We talk about 160th SOAR. We're talking about your Hypori, Halo, which is used right now, by like Space Force. That's really cool.
Well, I mean, by the Army and the Air Force, and there are some Space Force, but primarily Army is my big user.
Air Force is the Army, and Air Force is Space Force, so it's all Army.
True statement. I mean, I still joke and call my brothers and sisters in the Air Force Army Air Corps. So
I wish they would just go back to
love that necessarily. But,
why can't they just go back? There was a time when they were talking about going back to the Army, just like 10 years ago. Go back to the Army Air Corps.
But now we have Space Force, right?
Yeah. Bro, I love that show. It's pretty funny. Steve Carell does a good job as you're a general, act like it. You're right. Okay, I'm gonna wind down our show on some laughs and some good times talking with you, Jared Shepard.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on to SOFREP Radio and talking with me and letting my listeners hear just what's going on in the world of IT, and that there is success after the military in IT. And if the military wants to,
and not just in IT, in any number of things, right? Like,
on
that side of the house, like, look, if you're going to transition out of the military, my advice to you: start planning 12 months out. Leverage the programs that are out there. Use SkillBridge. Get some time to go and try some stuff on. Build upon what you've built upon in your past. It's not the end of something and the start of something new. It's just the continuation of your life, and it's a continuation of your experiences that you got to build upon. If you need help, check us out at warriorsethos.org. If you're interested in Hypori, whether it's for for the military use, for the government use, for corporate use, healthcare, banking, etc., come check us out at hypori.com. If you just want to reach out to me on LinkedIn or whatever, Jared Shepard on LinkedIn, I'm pretty easy to find, or Google me or whatever. And if you want some advice or something, man, I got to where I am because people who went out of their way. I will try to do the same for you.
I love that. And I'm the same. And I got my name out there, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn. I don't really access that too much, but I see it pop up on my feed. So I appreciate you also putting yourself out there to be reached out to. If you're someone out there transitioning and you got a year to go, or you're 6 months out, look up warriorethos.org. Check out hypori.com. And if you're in the DoD and you're looking for secure things, or you're in that department and you need to get something, talk to Jared. He's your man. And on behalf of myself and Brandon Webb and Anton and Guy and everybody, Martin, everybody behind the scenes here at SOFREP that's keeping this going, you buying the merch at the shop, checking out the book club, buying the books, Steel Fear, Cold Fear, all the books from the authors, supporting the guys that are on the show like Jared. I want to say thank you on behalf of Jared Shepard. This is Rad saying peace.
You've been listening to SOFREP Radio.